It's Sunday, December 28th, and we have a pretty legit threat of severe weather in the Midwest today, as well as the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. This entire marginal risk here is going to be pretty much entirely wind driven. Now, the winds aren't really going to be that strong, but definitely think we're going to be able to see a lot of isolated 60-mile-an-hour gusts anywhere within this shaded region. And then we also have a bit of a tornado risk today. This is quite a bit more isolated, though, really only in central Illinois and Indiana. And this would be for a couple of isolated spin ups. If that, this is a very conditional risk, and we might not really see any tornadoes at all today. Then for our hail risk, that is going to be pretty much zero, and all this severe weather is going to be ushering in a lot of cold weather, super cold weather actually, behind a cold front. And the start to our severe weather is going to be really, really quick. We might actually already have a severe weather kind of like warned storm even before the sun comes up in parts of central Illinois. What's going to happen? We're going to have a low pressure cold front and warm front complex, and these storms, which are going to be riding this warm front, are going to have access to some really good shear parameters, and that is going to allow them to rotate, kind of like we can see right here with this little area. We're seeing that the HRRR is picking up on some rotating storms moving through central Illinois and central Indiana in the very early morning hours today. This would be pretty much a couple hours after sunrise, and this storm could potentially have the capabilities to produce maybe a tornado, but definitely some damaging winds. So we're going to be looking for that as our warm front kind of moves northward. We're also going to see all this warm air advecting kind of behind it, and this could potentially play a role in our almost second wave, if you will, of storms. We're going to have a lot of warm air advection kind of under our warm front, helping to kind of pop up a couple of storms in front of our cold front. Also, our forcing from the jet stream is going to get really, really strong during this time. Our cold front is also going to deepen down, and that's going to cause more of a messy linear mode. Now, with this, it looks like we're going to get more of a squall, potentially a couple of embedded supercells within this line, though. Closer up here, I do want to say that the more northern these storms are, the more powerful they are going to be. So kind of in this bow segment right here, I think is what we're going to be looking at. Maybe a couple of embedded supercells in here. Definitely going to be capable of that wind threat. Not so sure about that tornado threat because it's so conditional. This is kind of one of those things where it's like only time will tell, and you definitely want to be weather aware on the day of if you are in that risk area. And this is what we're looking at for our parameters. For our thermodynamics, really, really little bit of cape here, but definitely not zero at the surface. We do have a little baby inverted V, definitely have enough moisture for these storms to get going. Our cloud bases are going to be low enough for potentially a tornado, and because our shear parameters are going to be so good, we even have a little bit of curvature in our photograph. Definitely think that's going to be a possibility. It's more of if the storm mode will allow it, because it's so messy and because there really isn't a whole lot of instability. It's going to take a lot for one of these storms to wrap up. Definitely a non-zero chance though, and want to be staying weather aware, especially for any of those storms clinging to that warm front. That is going to be the hot spot. And then maybe later in the day when that squall starts to interact with the low level jet, I think we can maybe see kind of a reintroduction of potentially some tornado or tornadic storms during that time. We also see a little bit of dry air aloft. This could help with our wind threat, but the main thing with our wind threat, because we don't really have a whole lot of cape, that's one of the reasons why there is actually pretty much a zero potential for any hail. Even though our freezing level is pretty low, we have no cape at all, and it's going to be a linear storm mode, so it's going to eliminate that threat entirely. But we have dry air loft, really good shear, that is going to help with lift for these storms, and mostly a damaging wind threat and potentially a very small tornado threat. And on top of all this, we have a little French fry risk for some flooding outlined by the Storm Prediction Center, with actually a hot spot on Buffalo. Buffalo could see around 2 to 4 inches of rain in a pretty quick time span today. And then also in this little green shaded area, just 1 to 2 inches rain, very conditional risk, but you are going to be receiving a lot of rain if you are in this green shaded risk. And this pretty much spans all the way from Chicago to Rochester, New York, and kind of centers on top of Detroit. So definitely want to be on the lookout if you're in that area. Kind of be prepared for maybe some flooding, although the risk is only going to be highest in that yellow shaded region. And for the rest of the country today, it pretty much looks like we're only going to be getting storms with our main system, which will stretch all the way down the Mississippi River Valley, as well as the Ohio River Valleys, Midwest, even back up into the Northeast. In front of the storm, we're still going to have that warm front advecting in front of that. Probably a lot of rain in front of that in the Northeast, but really, it's going to be really quiet everywhere else. Maybe a couple of isolated showers on the periphery of this high pressure system out here in the Atlantic on the coast, or the eastern coast more specifically, but we can see how clear it is. We don't even have rain in the Pacific Northwest today. So yeah, that's really going to be pretty much everything for precipitation for snow. Definitely think we're going to be seeing quite a bit with this system, especially behind this cold front as it really starts to deepen down in that freeze. And yeah, that's kind of exactly what we were looking at. So especially in Minnesota, the northern Midwest and Great Lakes region, that's going to be a hot spot. Widespread areas receiving in excess of 5 inches of snow. And it looks like we're still going to be getting snow up more kind of out west. We're even going to be seeing snow in the New Mexico mountains, as well as the Colorado mountains, just generally the Rockies. We could potentially see a couple of isolated areas of 5 inches in those higher elevations as well. And I didn't really mention the jet stream a whole lot today, but one thing to know, this is going to be a big role in our storm mode today, how strong the forcing is with this. You can see this purple jet max. This means we have really, really fast winds and really, really strong forcing. That's why we're seeing a more linear mode, and kind of why we don't see that squall line until later in the day, because that's when our forcing really ramps up. You can kind of see that jet max start around the late afternoon hours, kind of coinciding with exactly what we're seeing on the simulator reflectivity, and why we might be able to see that squall kind of get itself together later in the day. And the very, very, very last thing is that I've been talking about our cold front sharpening down and a lot of cold air invading the entire US. And this is really going to start today in parts of the northern plains. Looks like we're going to have widespread feels like temperatures in the negative teens. Maybe a couple of areas might even be able to reach down to -20. That's for sure going to happen in the night hours though. And then as we go into the night hours, we're just going to see, once that cold front passes and that squall passes, it is going to get cold very, very quickly. It's almost going to feel like it's freezing almost immediately. And we can see probably by the time we get daybreak on Monday, this freezing temperatures are going to reach all the way down into the far southeast, invading the entirety of Texas, with really the only thing lasting is Florida and the far eastern coast or far southeastern coast of the US. And this is really only going to continue as we go into the week, with potentially feels like freezing temperatures reaching as far south as central Florida.